Well, hello there. It's another day. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I am Bill Knight. Happy Monday. Hope you had a great weekend. Of course, we got rain here where I am, so.
I don't know whether you heard this or not, but the Air Force lost an F-35 jet over the weekend.
Yeah, where'd they lose it?
Well, the Air Force is asking the public for help finding a lost F-35 jet. That's one of those really fancy one with all the angles, like I think they cost like $1 billion or two.
Yeah,
anyway, it was lost over South Carolina on Sunday afternoon after the pilot ejected, and he ejected safely. He ejected into actually the backyard of somebody, and they took him to the hospital. They say he's in stable condition, so obviously he was hurt, but he will be okay. But they can't find the plane. Now,
how in the hell does that happen?
Now,
I mean, there's all kinds of tracking. There's radar. There's everything.
You would think, right? But the other thing is this. I mean, on my cell phone, I have something called Find My Phone. Okay? It's a little software app where if someone steals your phone or you lose your phone, you can go on another device and you can find where your phone is. Right?
Right.
Well, you would think they would have that on an F-35, like Find My Plane, but apparently they don't. Now, somebody over the weekend, they were making light of this whole thing, saying, well, there was a Chinese balloon with a big net that was flying along over North
Swooped
Carolina.
it up and carried away. It's out floating over the ocean right now.
Exactly. But I guess, folks, I don't know how you lose an F-35 jet airplane. Like Bill said, at the very least, you would think that radar would have tracked it, and they would have known exactly where it went. The other thing is this. They're so sophisticated, Bill. Is there a possibility that the thing landed by itself? Could they have landed this plane by itself? I mean, does it have that capability? Can't.
Well, look, if the plane was in trouble, the pilot ejected somewhere, so there's a certain reason of probability that it's going to go a certain way and come down in a certain region. You should be able to figure out where it's going to crash. And you would think a jet would make an explosion when it hits the ground. Yeah, it stands to reason.
It's full with jet fuel, right?
Yeah, and it would stand to reason that somebody somewhere would see that thing. Wow, look at that thing. It's streaking down. Boom. Oh, It crashed.
Exactly.
Let's go see what it is.
That's true.
None of that went on, so that makes me wonder, did the pilot eject, or was he given a false sense of sensors so that we could sit there and find a way to quietly take this plane and give it to somebody to re-engineer because it's a new plane?
Here's the thing about the F-35, though. I don't know whether you're aware of this or not, but I believe that during the Obama administration, the Chinese suddenly seemed to have all the information they needed to make one that looks exactly like it.
Yeah.
They have a plane in China that looks like our F-35, and they didn't have the plans. So people think that maybe Joe might have given the plans, but it's amazing that all of a sudden the Chinese have the kind of planes that took us years to develop, Anyway, so if you happen to run into an F-35, if you're down in North Carolina, you're out for a stroll in the woods, you run into this odd-looking airplane that's just there out of nowhere, that you might want to call the United States Air Force because they're missing an F-35.
Yeah, I saw it driving down I-95 now. I was headed to Florida. Trying to find an airport so I could take off. I don't know. But it is a crazy story, and it's there. There's a lot of weird, crazy stories and old news that was popping up in my timeline over the weekend. I mean, I'm sitting out at the ball field, and I get a thing on Obama. Remember the old story about him and his birth certificate? Mm-hmm. And it was a story that I had forgotten where they had actually did a forensic of the birth certificate, and it turned out that the copy that they had that, solidified him was a fake.
They said it was Photoshopped, wasn't it?
It was Photoshopped, and the way they did that, you take two pieces of paper, all right, and you put them together of a copy of something, they will line up the headings and logos will line up perfectly in the way where everything falls, typed in or written in stuff. All right. If it's Photoshopped, it'll do that, which it did. If it was not Photoshopped and it was the real McCoy, then it's not going to compare to other. The probability of impossibility was like,
slim
over the
and
roof.
none.
It's over the roof that it was fake.
Right.
And it went through a lot of forensics, and then the news dropped it. So I'm like going,
hey, listen, Obama gets away with everything. He does, because the media, they love the guy. I mean, the guy could be, he could wear a swastika, and they still would love this guy. They just love Obama. I mean, think about this for a second. This was said in public by Obama, and nobody made anything of it. Listen.
You just have to flood a country's public square with enough raw sewage. You just have to raise enough questions, spread enough dirt, plant enough conspiracy theorizing that citizens no longer know what to believe. Once they lose trust in their leaders, in mainstream media, in political institutions, in each other, in the possibility of truth, the game's won.
Okay, so he got away with that. I mean, he said that. And, just the mere fact that he put that whole paragraph together means that the guy's thought about this. This is not something which just came off the top of his head. And
well, if he thought about it, it's probably something he's guilty of. But, you take the birthing thing.
Tomorrow, Bill, the 19th, Malik, his brother, is supposed to be the guest on Tucker's program. And he's supposed to have, I guess it's supposed to be a real tell-all kind of interview. Now, I don't know whether that's still going ahead or whether they've decided to postpone that. But I know that as of like about a week ago, it was being promoted as something that was going to happen on the 19th. I'm aware of the 19th because it's a day that it's in my mind too. Because another thing is happening with me.
Yeah. Really deep and personal. Yes,
it is indeed, yes. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see if that happens, and if there is the great news that comes from this interview. Supposedly he's going to say that Obama was born in Kenya. This is what I've heard. Supposedly he was born in Kenya, that he is not the Barack Obama that he sold himself to us as his whole life. So it should be an interesting conversation. I think that the one that he had a couple of weeks ago with Larry Sinclair did like 30 or 40 million views. So apparently it's a topic people are interested in.
Well, you got that. You got Michelle, or Michael. There's a question about Michelle's birth certificate.
Yeah.
Michael's got a birth certificate. But,
well, there's, and the thing is, there's a picture of Michelle looking an awfully lot like Michael. But the only thing that makes me hesitate is that as well as I do that they can do anything with Photoshop nowadays. So
what we're talking about could have been Photoshopped too. You can plant a lot of stories out there, even on yourself, if you're wanting to manipulate the news and create conspiracies and whatnot and everything that's going on. But sometimes you got to step back and take a look at the whole picture and put the pieces together. Like the story in Maui and Oprah and her failed thing. I gave $10 million and I'm hurt. Everybody's upset. Well, she gave $5 million. And what she's not telling you is that $5 million that she gave, along with the $5 million from The Rock, didn't come without strings. It came with strings. And that money is not as genuine as it sounds, because their salaries, it's like all these other charitable organizations. $3 million of it goes right down the old toilet because it goes kicked back in salaries for somebody. So Here, I'm going to give you $1. There's going to be a 90-cent processing fee on that.
See, what it is, folks, is they have a nonprofit that's running this whole charitable event that Oprah's pushing. Meaning, if she's asking, I guess like Bill said, they put $5 million apiece. The Rock put in $5 million, Oprah put in $5 million into this charity, and they're soliciting funds from the public so that they can then take those funds and distribute them to the people who need it all around the island of Maui. But the thing is, like Bill said, I read that the chairman of this nonprofit makes like $3 million a year, and the other people are making hundreds of thousands of dollars in salary. These are people who work for a nonprofit charitable organization.
So it's gone over $5 million right there, and let's not forget that Oprah's going to, at the end of the year, sit there, go on her taxes, go, well, I donated $5 million to charity. Yeah. And so that's a $5 million write-off that is like getting the money back from the government. And then all of a sudden, she's got business expenses because however a good accountant is going to turn that $5 million expense into a profit. And, they gave nothing to the Hawaiians. They stole money.
In the meantime, the governor of Hawaii, Josh Green, gave an update on the search for people on the island. This was on Friday. Listen.
Aloha, everyone. Here on day 38, I'm going to give you some updates on the number of fatalities. We're now at 97. That number dropped a little bit because the Department of Defense and all of their physical anthropologists were able to help us discern better who was in cars or in houses. So thank God fewer people have passed away. We still have 31 open reports, and not all of those who are lost have been identified. So we'll get these numbers more and more refined, but fewer people have been lost. We're going to do what we can to house the 7,415 people that are currently in hotel rooms, move them into long-term rentals. If you have a long-term rental and you'd like to participate, contact us. We would love to rent that for 18 months. We want everyone to get housing for a long time as we rebuild. Mahalo for understanding and mahalo for your generosity.
I mean, this guy's amazing. What he doesn't tell you in this update is that they still haven't accounted for 2,000 school children. They haven't accounted for 2,000. Did you hear him mention in that update anything about 2,000 school children? I didn't.
Yeah, now, where are they? And I think it's a fair question because, after all, the United States is the number one nation for importing and trafficking of children. So don't sit there and take a holier-than-thou attitude. Well, we're the United States of America.
No.
We are. Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
And we're not as good as we say. How many times have you seen somebody on TV that you thought, boy, what a nice person, and then you find out they weren't such a nice person, and
take it from us, okay? We worked in broadcasting. I worked in broadcasting for 50 years, and I know, folks, I started when I was 3. But the point is,
I was 4.
The point is, it is not the people you hear on the air that you think are your friends. Oh, he's such a good guy. Many times they're the exact opposite in real life. They aren't the people you think they are. It's just the way it is. That they get on the air, they get in front of a microphone or in front of a camera, and they become somebody else. And then when you see them off the air, they're totally different. It's just and that's the case. I'm afraid at the highest levels. You think Oprah, because she was on every afternoon at 4 talking about her best-selling books and talking to authors and talking to doctors, like she really was your friend. But let me submit that you didn't know her. Okay, you didn't know her. She made a ton of money. Now, I think when somebody's worth several $1 billion, they have an obligation. They have an obligation to give back. Now, you may say, well, she says she does give back. She has these charitable organizations. Well, this is the push comes to shove moment. She lives on Maui. Those people are her neighbors. forget the standard nonprofits. This is the reach into your purse moment and do the right thing moment. This is where if you're worth, even if you're just worth $1 billion, I mean, you would think that she would turn around because, like this happened down the hill from her mansion, that she would make a huge, I'm not talking about $5 million. $5 million when you're worth a couple billion is nothing. It's nothing. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's insignificant. It's not going to be missed. For you and I, $5 million, that's a lot of money. But for somebody like Oprah, that's a whole different thing. But yet she goes on television last week with Nate Burleson, the former football player who is an incredible liberal and is, I'm sorry, if you are a liberal in these days, you're as dumb as a box of rocks. I'm sorry. You cannot go around in this environment and believe the nonsense the left is throwing at you and think they're right. You know, I mean, they're killing our country. They're destroying everything that made us what we are. The stability in this country is shot to hell thanks to your friends on the left. Mm-hmm. I mean, down at the border, my God, we had it under control just 3 years ago, and now, thanks to this fool that we have in Washington, we are now on the precipice of destruction. They say that illegal immigration is absolutely through the roof. Jeff Van Drew is a former Democrat from New Jersey. He was the representative, you may remember, who during the Trump administration said, "No, I can't be a Democrat anymore. I'm going to be a Republican." Well, Jeff Van Drew was being interviewed on Fox a few days ago, and he was talking about a town in his state, New Jersey, which is in the Northeast, right? I mean, right. It's not a border state. And he was talking about a small town with a little airport that's being used by the federal government to drop off illegals. And by the way, when they drop them off, they just drop them off. Listen.
Kind of like a Mina.
So my understanding, first of all, welcome. And my understanding is that this airport is in a very rural farm town. What do you make of that? What are you hearing from the constituents that live there about their ability to, provide resources for this kind of an influx?
They can't provide the resources. This is a town of 50,000 people. Atlantic County can't do it. This town can't do it. It should have never happened. Hopefully it won't happen. We're going to fight this with every ounce of strength that we have. It is the wrong thing. When we said what was happening at the southern border was going to affect the entire United States of America, this is what happens. It's not just, I want people that are listening out there, this is not just an Arizona problem or a Texas problem or a California problem. This is a United States of America problem, and now they want to come into our beautiful county, our beautiful South Jersey, and try to ruin that as well. There's also a national defense issue here. This is a very, very important issue to understand. We have the FAA Technical Center there, who's doing very important work, some of it which is very significant for the safety of this country in air flight, and we have our F-16s that are there as part of our defense as well, as part of the Air National Guard, 177 Fighter Wing. They are the first line of defense for Washington, D.C. and New York City. This is a disaster in the making. This is the worst administration, I used to say, in my lifetime. No, this is the worst administration in the history of the United States of America.
Congressman, you see that the mayor of New York, the governor of New York, their solution is give us more money and we'll find more places to put these people. And they're working with the administration to do that. It just doesn't make sense. If you have this many people that you can't house, that you don't have enough money to do it, and that you're willing to even put it in places that you say could, compromise our national security, the answer is to go to the border and seal it and shut it down.
It's so obvious. Literally, an elementary school child could understand.
So why are they doing it? Why are they leaving the border open? I mean, you were a Democrat. Explain to those of us with common sense, how come, why are they allowing this to happen?
It's purposeful, it's destructive, and it's corrupt. It is to change the social structure of the United States of America. It's literally self-destructive. I've never seen anything like it. That's why we need an impeachment inquiry. It's just another reason. You don't want to do the impeachment yet. At least do the impeachment inquiry, because in my committee, we would allow us to go forward and to have more powers for subpoena, to allow us to have more powers to investigate. We need to know every single thing that's going on. This is not a mistake. It's not an accident. It is purposeful, and it's harmful, and it's the wrong thing to do. And he's not fulfilling his obligations as a president of the United States. And you know what? We don't want to be a sanctuary airport. If they want to be a sanctuary city in New York City, that's up to them. It's hurting the city tremendously, too.
He was a former Democrat. Jeff Van Drew, he was a former Democrat, and he said it's purposeful. It means it's intentional. They want to change the fabric of our country. I should point out that for a second, I lost Bill again. They pulled the plug on us. And you know what happens when that happens? The picture of my partner here freezes. Well, it froze this time around in a very intense look on your face, like you were really listening to every word that I was saying. And I thought, boy, my comments must be riveting. And then I realized that you weren't moving at all. But anyway.
No. And I found it interesting, too. It was during the actuality. And I'm sitting there listening. All of a sudden, the video and everything dropped, and it was clean. And I'm going, that was a switch being thrown. And I can say that most assuredly because it happened last week on not 1, 2, 3, but I think 4 occasions on us.
Right.
And it's not them doing work on the lines or solar glares or anything like that. No, this, my friends, is somebody listening, because we've actually sat there and caught them in the background where you hear them, eating their Twinkies or whatever the hell they're doing. Get a new job.
Yes, well, you would think.
If I find out who you are, I'll knock the hell out of you. And I can say that because you're not really listening. I'm just saying that to the air.
That's it. You're trying to lure them out. I know you. But anyway, Jeff Van Drew was interesting. He said that this is purposeful. They're trying desperately to change the fabric of our country, and they're doing it. I mean, it used to be when they first started to do this, it was just affecting the border towns, El Paso, Lubbock, all these. They were all being affected. Lubbock isn't a border town, but what I'm saying, the southern state towns were being affected. But now, Jeff Van Drew's up in New Jersey. They're dropping them off there. They're dropping them off in Pittsburgh, in Boston. They're all over the place. I mean, we got hundreds, millions of people who weren't here a couple of years ago roaming the streets. And now we're starting to see, and I'm sure you've seen this too, news stories where, so-and-so murders such and such, young mother of 2 killed by illegal. I mean, these things are happening, and they shouldn't be happening in our country. If the administration cared about the people who live in this country, they would never do something like this, but they don't care.
Well, I tend to wonder if that we really had a say. You go back to the thing that we mentioned about Obama. Let's just say that he was somebody that was put in place by certain powers that be. It was Oprah that introduced us to Obama that got him on the forefront. So let's just say, the staging of presidents went back to then, although it may have gone further back. But Obama gave us, what was it, a DACA bill, where, about the borders and everything, and which was ruled last week. It's illegal. It was illegal.
It's actually been ruled. It's been ruled illegal a couple of times, and they've overturned it. You know, they keep throwing it out there like it's something that should be and will be eventually accepted. But it keeps, like you said, it keeps getting thrown out by the.
I mean, you've got people that have come across the border illegally. Now, United States is a country of immigrants. All right, we always have vetted people in, but we've done it properly. I think we're the only nation that has taken down its borders under the Obama and Biden administration, and there's a reason behind it. And what it is, I don't know. The narrative out there, well, we don't want to be like Japan. You know, Japan's going to go away because they're not producing a population anymore. Births are down, so they have to immigrate, but they have strict immigration policies over there. Hell, we got none here.
Do you remember when our lying media in 2016 and 2017 started to make an issue out of the fact that Trump was putting illegal immigrants into cages on the border? Do you remember that?
Yeah, and that was actually, it was Obama that put the cages there. It was Obama that put the kids in it.
Yeah, well, do you know what they just found out? They announced this past week that Biden is putting people in the border in cages.
Well,
but it's not a story anymore. You know?
No, of course not.
This dishonest media that we have, they won't talk about it if it's being done by their side.
But what they don't understand, it is a grab for power. They think, well, it's going to be the Democrats that rule. We're going to have it the way we want. No, your mind has been manipulated. They came in and they found your hot button. Listen, we want a rainbow society. If that's your button, they've divided you, they've compartmentalized you, and you're on their page. But they also know who you are, what you are, and where you are. And when they get exactly what they want, they know who you are, what you are, and where you are, and they will take care of you in due course. Trust me, they can give two flips about who you are, where you are, and what you are, except that you exist. And at some point in time, they ain't going to need you.
You know, it's really interesting. The Democrats for the longest time, especially the mayors of these big cities, guys like Eric Adams, they bragged, they spoke with great pride about the fact that they were sanctuary cities, that everybody was welcome here. It's just what we are, being the liberal Democrats that we are. Well, the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, was being interviewed about being a sanctuary city and the illegals, and here's what she said. Listen very carefully.
What they're trying to do is destabilize cities because it's Chicago, it's Washington, D.C., it's New York. It's the narrative that these are Democratic-run cities and that we don't know how to govern and that everything is chaotic here. We live in a city that welcomes immigrants. And so I think we have been able to handle it. But I am fearful that any day planes could start coming.
Did you hear that? She says, we're a city that welcomes people. But I am fearful that planes will start coming, meaning planes filled with illegals. And then she'll have to put up or shut up, you know?
Well, you know what? I welcome immigration too. But you know what? Go through the proper channels. And let's make sure that the people that we bring in want to be a part of and accept our values, traditions, and standards.
Most every American has come from another country. The family came from another country. We're all immigrants, but we came in here through the front door. If you had a house, would you unlock the back door and let anybody who wants to walk in just walk into your house?
Well, Jim, we've taken the doors down all the way around the house.
Yeah,
you know, just come on in. It's a party. It's your party. And if you need us to leave, we will. You can kick us out of our house. It's Mikasa Yukasa. It's your place.
Yeah, sure. Listen, hey, look, food in the refrigerator, take all you want. No problem.
Yeah.
You want to sleep in the bed upstairs? Yeah, that's my room, but you can have it because you got in through the back door. So I'm not going to stop you. How would you like to be somebody who lives, you know, on a border town in Texas or Arizona?
Wow. I wouldn't. That valuable property is worth squat now, and we're letting people through. You've even got guys climbing the fence over there with the help of guerrillas. I mean, the cartel
I saw that
are coming over in camouflage. And I'm like, wait a minute. I could read a lot of things into this guy's coming over in camouflage because apparently the gates are open. So what is he? Is he a mule?
Did you read the story? You read the story about the woman. Mind you, this was written obviously by somebody on the left, but an illegal woman scaled the wall, and apparently she fell, and when she fell, she died, which is a tragedy. It's sad, but they're making it sound like she wouldn't have had to do that if there wasn't a wall there. Well, wait a second. Nobody suggested that she climb it, but that's still what she did. But the left flips the normal things around, stories that make sense don't make sense, and vice versa. Do you know what I'm saying? That's what the left is doing nowadays. I mean, it's like that guy who stood in front of the burning building during the riots a few years ago, Antifa, back in, was it 2020, when the cities were burning in Portland and Seattle and Minneapolis. There's a guy standing in front of a burning building, a reporter, I think, for MSNBC, right. And he's saying, well, these are mostly peaceful demonstrations. In the meantime, behind him, there are guys throwing furniture and stuff into the fire. It is raging out of control. And I mean, it just doesn't make sense. And they don't want you to believe your lying eyes. They just don't want
they don't. And you know what? They know one thing, because they control the schools, they control the history, they control the youth. My son made it very clear. He'll be 21 coming up in November. But his generation goes like we were talking about 911 the other day. Didn't happen in our lifetime. We don't care. And as I looked around and talked to a lot of young people, we don't care. We laugh at that because it didn't affect them. Here's what I'm going to say subtly to anybody that is a millennial and beyond. Wake up, smell the roses, and pay attention.
Learn your history.
If you don't know the history, you don't know from where you came, and you don't know where the hell you're going.
Well, do you know how many young people don't believe the Holocaust happened?
Right. And I'm just saying, if you wash it out of your mind, it's not important. It didn't happen in my lifetime. It'll never happen again. The hell it won't. What do you think the people that said when it happened to them? Oh, this will never happen again. But if you look in the history, events very similar to it have happened time and time and time again. The old saying, history repeats itself.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that saying, because it repeats itself. And if you don't know your history, you don't know what you got coming.
What's the saying? A man who doesn't know history is bound to repeat it. Yeah. But they don't seem to have a value of history. A lot of the young people, they don't seem to appreciate where we've been. And it's sad. That maybe that's why we're in the state that we're in. They spend more time playing video games and watching sporting events than they do paying attention to what's happening in the real world around them.
Yeah.
In the real world.
When you pay attention to what's happening in the real world, I mean, we're at war with Russia. Most people don't realize it. We're at war with Russia, and it all gets back to, look at, I think Trump is the only sitting former president of past and present where Russia, Putin, hasn't tried to do something aggressively. Trump is the only one, because you look at Clinton started that whole bandwagon. When Putin said, he wanted to be a part of NATO, and he didn't get in because,
you have to have a villain.
Clinton looked at him. Huh?
They have to have a villain. The left has to.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say.
Yeah.
Because Clinton looked at him and said no and laughed at him. And that's when Putin realized the only hold that the United States really has on anything is this European NATO union. So that's what it is. It's muscle, and he was the bad guy. So all of a sudden, under the Bushes and under Obama, he's done aggressive things. Under Biden, he's done aggressive things. Under Trump understood that. He hasn't done that. But now he's attacking our dollar. Everything, the American dollar rules the world. But there's another, I forget what it starts with, a B, I think, whatever it is. But it's the dollar that they're looking at now, that they brought a lot of dollars under. South Africa has come into it. India's come into it. And it's rivaling the United States. And what's going to happen is you take down the dollar, you take down our economy, we're done. And we've already opened our borders. I mean, why are we sitting there doing this? We have got the perfect location for a country to be. We've got, a weak country up north. They're weak to the south, so we're fortified that way. We got oceans on both sides of us. We're protected that way. We're not an easy country to take down. And we have a very sophisticated, strong military. But yet we sit there and seem to want to take it and just, poof, open up the borders. Let's take down that wall. Let's sit there and allow the economy to go to hell in a handbasket.
Maybe it's because the people who are running our country right now don't have our best interest at heart.
No, they don't. They don't have the country's best interest at heart. And, the news they can't even deny the fact now and cover the fact. And there was a story to that effect over the weekend that, it's really hard to hide anymore the Hunter Joe connection and the crimes that they have committed. And we're talking not just regular old, mobster type crimes. We're talking about treason. So you talk about the Chinese having the F-35, a clone plane of it. Well, I bet you that goes right back to Mr. Biden during the Obama administration.
Sure.
So those two clowns ought to be in prison.
And trust me, do not give a pass to Obama, because if Joe was making these deals, he knew. Obama knew.
He knows right now.
Exactly.
He's running look, do you think that Joe's calling the shots? Joe's a thug. He is a thug. He's a mobster hitman.
Yeah.
And I hate to
it doesn't bother him, Bill, that people's lives are being destroyed on a daily basis.
He doesn't care.
With
he has
overdoses.
No value in life.
Overdoses, fentanyl overdoses that wouldn't be happening if they controlled the border. Because they don't control the border, our country is being flooded with all this crap, all this terrible, vile stuff. And if Biden cared about your family, your children, he would be fighting like Trump fought. You don't like Trump? Oh, Trump is a bad guy. Well, you all you have to do is look how hard he fought to protect us from the bad people, the real bad people, the cartels, the villains of the world, all right? Trump did that, but you don't see the media giving him his credit. All they want to do is attack the guy, and the people on the left who just aren't paying attention. I mean, I have friends who are liberals, I have friends who are woke, and for the most part, they're still my friends. But the fact of the matter is, when it comes to politics, they just haven't got a clue about what's really going on. They live and they work on emotions. Everything is, I don't like how Trump looks. His hair is orange, and Trump says so many egotistical things. I don't give a darn what Trump looks like or what he says. I care about his performance. His performance was masterful.
he was...
Go ahead, Bill.
He was reveled and loved before he ever ran for president. As a matter of fact, the Democrats courted him, but he realized that he didn't want anything to do with this. And if you go back and look at the old interviews, even with Oprah, they were impressed with him because they were. But he did not represent the deep state, and you didn't know how deep those waters were until he got into office and really started turning things around. They don't like that. The left today, the deep state, they're so busy trying to divide. They're going after the church to compartmentalize and divide it into factions so they can take down the church. And you say, no, come on, Bill, you're making that up. You look at the news, there's the American Federation of Christians. It's a not very old group, and I really can't find any religious background to it except that they're trying to divide and take their talking points and weave them into the church and radicalize the church and tear it apart. Because when they do that, they're going to do just like they've done to human sexuality. Well, you identify it in California, it's now become a grab for your child. They can't grab land anymore, so they'll grab what really gets to the heart and soul of the matter, your kids, because you don't like their gender identity that we programmed into them. Then you're not a good parent. We're going to have to take them away. So they're attacking everything and everyone.
They're gradually, but they're constantly trying to infuse socialism, dare I say, communism, into our society. They're trying to make that the norm. They're doing it slowly, but it is constantly happening. And that's the thing that scares me more than anything. They really are trying to, while it's almost like, when you take a frog and you put it in boiling water, if the water's cool when you put the frog in and you gradually turn the heat up very, very slowly, eventually the frog is just going to succumb from the heat. But it's not going to panic like it would have panicked if he just threw it into the boiling water. It's the gradual increase of heat that the frog doesn't notice that is the ultimate thing that brings it down. And that's what's happening to our country right now. This administration is gradually but constantly changing everything about our system. Look at the judicial system we have right now. Look at what we have got judges who are doing openly illegal things in the name of the law. I mean, they're indicting a former president. They're doing things that, considering right now, gagging the number one presidential candidate in our country, above Biden, above everybody else. They want to gag him. We could go on.
I've read stories saying, Trump's numbers are dropping. Well, they're really not dropping, but they're going to be dropping. They're trying to do that. They're trying to tear this guy down, and it's driving them nuts because they can't.
I don't know where you read that, because I just saw a survey came out this week that Trump is literally like 13 points ahead of Biden.
Yeah, that's true. But what I'm saying is they come out with these stories saying Trump is losing numbers, but he's not. And then they come back and qualify and saying, well, he's going to because of this and this and this. So in other words, they're taking their wishful thoughts and turning it into a story. But the simple fact is he's not losing. He's growing because every day some people are waking up, and even the news is having a hard time covering for everything. And why, if you've got any brain at all and you're in the news, do you want to sit there and, keep telling a lie? Unless you're that stupid.
Because you're not a real news person.
You're that stupid.
Yeah, you're a propagandist, period, pure and simple. You're not there to report the news. You're out there to report a story. Another thing is you can't trust everybody on our side either.
No, you can't.
Case in point, a guy that I liked a lot was Tom Cotton. He's a senator from Arkansas. And Tom Cotton, Roger Wicker of Mississippi, Susan Collins of Maine, and Lindsey Graham of South Carolina have penned a letter to Joe Biden urging him to send MGM-140 Army tactical missile systems to the Ukraine. The senators argue that not doing so will only prolong the war between the Ukraine and Russia. The senators' proposal is misguided and perilous for the United States and global stability, to say the very least. They don't care. I mean, this guy Tom Cotton, you think that he would pause for a second and say, "Wait a second, do the American people really want to be more involved in this senseless war?" They keep talking about it like it's some kind of a great noble cause. It's being run by one of the most corrupt governments on the planet, the Ukrainian government. Zelensky.
Yeah.
How soon we forget. You realize that Zelensky, he closed down. Zelensky closed down the church in the Ukraine about 6 months ago. The church wasn't going along with the narrative of the state, so instead of talking to the church and getting them to maybe come to some middle ground, Zelensky just decided to close down the Ukrainian National Church altogether. Is that a noble, free thing that a great democracy would be promoting? Do you think that that's the kind of thing we would have promoted in this country? Well, maybe today with this administration they may promote that, but for centuries, we prided ourselves separation of church and state. You could say what you want to say, and you could believe what you want to believe. We're a free country.
Russia is winning. Russia is actually winning the Ukraine war, and a lot of people are coming to the conclusion that, they are.
Yeah.
They're probably not going in as with the force that they can, which tells you something. It is in the deep state's best interest that you have a divided Russia, and that's why under Clinton, Obama, the Bushes, and Biden, Russia has gone after different factions, and they're going after the Ukraine. The outcome of the Ukraine is not really probably the important thing. In the long scheme of things, and we need to get out of the war business, but that's how we make money.
Well, did you hear last week, Bill, we played it, Russia has 100,000 more troops than the Ukrainians. But so just by attrition, the Russians are going to win the war. They are losing. The Ukrainians are losing far more soldiers on a daily basis than the Russians are. And the Russians have 100,000 more troops, just, that's the way it is, than the Ukrainians. I'm not a math whiz by any stretch of the imagination, but just the sheer numbers say that the Russians are going to win, period. Now, I did hear it over the weekend, a politician, a U.S. politician, promote the idea that maybe we're going to have to get involved militarily ourselves, the United States.
Why?
Bill, you're asking the wrong guy. I don't think this war we shouldn't have anything to do with this war. This shouldn't be our war. But yet,
let's just further say, I don't know that we have a lot of time, but we don't. But we've got things that we need to do. Because we got a lot of fronts here that we need to fix. Borders, I would say, is probably number one. We need to fix our economy because right now things are going out of control. True?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we got to work on the economy. What else do we need
Infrastructure.
to work on? Infrastructure.
Bridges, highways,
Well, you know what? I think that's just a buzzword. They don't really care about the infrastructure. It is important to do. But, Putin made a comment one time to Z that, the United States, you have these politicians come in. They promise you a lot and they're well-spoken, and then they get into office and they're not around for a long time and they don't do anything. But they don't do any of what they said.
Of course they don't.
He goes, there must be something bigger in control of them. In other words, even Putin says there's a deep state. We're not what we pretend to be.
I think he absolutely knows that there's a deep state. He probably has a list of names of people who run the deep state.
Yeah.
We talked about a few minutes ago about the fact that there was a time when Russia wanted to be a part of NATO. And we lobbied that not happen. Because we wanted Russia to be the villain. We always have got to have a villain. If we have nobody who's a villain, then we can't keep fighting wars.
Well, let me just say it this way. Our white hat was made out of a dirty diaper. And I'm just telling you that right now. We are not the good guys that we purport to be. So what else do we need to do around this?
We blew up the let's not
Nord Stream, yeah?
Yeah, we blew up Nord Stream, the pipeline. Tucker was in Europe, in Hungary, a few weeks ago, and he recorded a video while he was driving, and I've been wanting to play this. He had an interview with the president of Serbia. Listen.
We just met with the president of Serbia, who is advertised is smart and aware and has a perspective that you don't get in the United States very often. One of the points he made is that the war in Ukraine, the war against Russia led by NATO, has crushed the European economy. The destruction of Nord Stream by the Biden administration, either directly or through proxies, is killing the German economy. And the German economy is the largest economy in Europe by far. And so the downstream effects of that, one NATO country effectively attacking another NATO country, are felt throughout Europe. And that's crazy. That's completely crazy. This war is hurting everybody, possibly with the exception long term of Russia, and empowering everybody outside of Europe. The Gulf states, China, Turkey. So you're really seeing the world reset in response to this war. It's a little more complicated than Hitler versus Churchill, good versus bad, democracy. It's really about a massive shift in power away from the United States and the West to the East. It's all happening right now, but very few people in our country seem aware of it for some reason.
And you know what's interesting? The NATO members, they know who destroyed the pipeline. They all know.
They do. Let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Before you play the audio, I was thinking, Tucker, very well-spoken guy. Everybody knows who he is now. Is he not going to think about getting into politics?
Actually, I've heard people suggest that he do that, but I have also heard that he has put a massive, dangerous target on himself by the deep state. There are people out there who say that he is literally a target of assassination.
Well, he's a target whether he does what he does. If he shuts up and lives at home, where is he? Connecticut?
He's in Maine.
Maine. Okay, he's in Maine. So he's in Maine. Doesn't matter where he is, even if he shuts up, he's a target. So if you're going to be a target, you may as well be an effective target.
Speaking of targets, out of all the people on the political stage right now, the guy who is probably the most sensitive guy to assassination, the word assassination, is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. His uncle was assassinated, and his father was assassinated, right? So what happened last week? Last week, he's at a Hispanic speech. I guess this was Friday. And he's giving a speech, and his guards stopped a guy who's had tattoos all over him. He's dressed in it says EMS on the back, but he's got a U.S. Marshal's badge on his belt, and he's got a lanyard around his neck with U.S. Marshal's identity on it. And he's got 2 fully loaded guns with spare clips. And he's demanding to be taken to Kennedy because he's part of, quote, his security. He's telling the guards who stopped him, hey, don't stop me, I'm part of Kennedy's security. Well, these guards, thank goodness, checked, and they didn't know who this character was. But now they're trying to make it sound like, well, it was just a misunderstanding. I mean, the guards aren't trying to make this guy's people, this guy's brother. This guy is saying, hey, I thought I had a day job on security. And no, you don't walk into an event with a fake U.S. Marshal's badge and ID and pretend.
Was it a fake badge, or was it one that was? See, I would have.
No, it was a real badge. It was a real U.S. Marshal's badge.
So find that U.S. Marshal that I went to, and say, what happened to your badge, clown? And if he goes, it's not my badge, See, what I'm thinking is this sounds like right out of the playbook from 1963. It's this.
Yeah, it's the same kind of. Well, in 1968, when his father gave a speech at I think it was the Roosevelt Hotel in Los Angeles, and he said, "Now it's on to Chicago and the nomination." And he went through the kitchen area of this hotel, and he was assassinated. And it was because they weren't paying it. His security wasn't really paying attention. They allowed people to swarm him that shouldn't have even been around him. I mean, you would think that a presidential candidate, if he was cutting through the kitchen nowadays, they would clear the kitchen. Everybody out of the kitchen, just as security and the candidate. But he was walking through this crowd of people in the kitchen, and he was assassinated. And by the way, they tried to tell you Sirhan shot him from the back, yet they've just come out recently and said, I think Robert Kennedy Jr. said this, that the bullets that took out his father were from the front.
Yeah, the magic bullet that was found on the ground that was clean had nothing on it, but it was evidence because the guy from 60...
You mean in John Kennedy's assassination?
Oh, yeah, John Kennedy. Yeah. But, that was the magic bullet. Either way.
Yeah.
But I'm saying is they use the same playbook over and over and over again, but the American public, because we don't remember our history, we don't catch on.
And do you know what? Robert Kennedy Jr. has been asking for Secret Service protection. He's a He's a major candidate. He is a major candidate, right? He is the only one, I believe, on the whole political landscape right now who doesn't have Secret Service protection. He has private protection. They won't give him secret. You would think that the one that the Democrats would be the most sensitive to would be Robert F. Kennedy Jr. You would think that just because of who he is and who his uncle and father were, that they would just automatically protect him. But Biden and his swine, they won't give him protection. So, anyway.
Of course not. They don't want to.
We could go on, my friend, but we've just about done it. We have it's a busy news cycle. A lot of things are happening, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot to talk about tomorrow and the next day. Hopefully, there will be a tomorrow show. We'll just leave it at that.
Well, you know what? I mean, when I said I wasn't kidding about saying we are at war with Russia. It may not be a traditional war, but it can go to the traditional form. And I think we are very close to that and there are people in Washington that don't care, because they're protected. We profit from it. It's to a point to where
maybe they want it, Bill. I've heard some people say that rather than giving up power to the right, they would prefer us to get into some kind of a world crisis that they believe will galvanize their position in government and get us all to look to the crisis as opposed to the political scene.
Well, I think we are the pawn, and you're right. If they're going to give up control to the right or to Trump, oh my God, that's the people's man. Then they would more gladly go to war than to have that happen. And we may be going to war anyway, even if the Trump thing didn't happen. But they're willing to risk it because I think they think it's a do or die situation.
One other thing over the weekend, I don't know whether you saw this or not, but John Fetterman there's a video he posted of him doing about 70 miles an hour on a western Pennsylvania highway in his Jeep Wrangler, I guess. And he's driving.
What's the speed limit in Pennsylvania?
I don't know. It's 65. Yeah. But anyway, he's obviously moving right along, and he is driving. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a second. This guy had a major stroke. He has a hard time putting a sentence together, yet he's behind the wheel and he's driving down the highway.
It's a photo op. But why was he driving? Why wouldn't he fly?
I mean, he was going to a union event in Detroit. So
why wouldn't he fly? Nancy flies everywhere.
Yeah, but the thing is, why is he driving? He's a stroke victim with cognitive problems. Would you want to be on a highway with this guy behind you? I would think that I
no.
would think that he probably broke some law somewhere. Maybe his insurance company wouldn't cover him if he got into an accident because the guy had a stroke. I mean, the guy can't put a whole sentence together. You think he can understand what a traffic light means? If he gets into a situation when he has to pass somebody and get quickly back into the right lane, do you think he'll be able to figure that thing out? I'm just saying. But then he got to the event. It was he grabbed a picket sign because he wanted to show his solidarity with union members, and they asked him a couple of questions, and again he got a little confused. And I'm not going to play that, but he doesn't sound quite as confused as he sounded, a year ago. And maybe that's just healing. Who knows? Or maybe it's not the same guy. That's something for another show. Hey, anyway, have a great day, my friend. If you want to reach us, 833-538-7868, 833-538-7868.
There's mail at itsanotherday.com. There's mail at jimandbill.com and jimandbill@mail.com. So, yeah, you got 3 ways to get a hold of us, so do it.
All your bases are covered. So if you want to reach us, by all means do so. Also, you can listen to us on Amazon Music and iTunes and iHeartRadio. All you have to do with iHeart is say Jim and Bill under podcast, and we'll be there. And tell your friends, please. Pass the word. Share our show with your friends and neighbors because we're growing in leaps and bounds, as they would say. So without any further ado, I will ask you, Mr. Knight, to close this thing with your usual line.
The usual line. That would be, hasta la vista, baby. We're out of here.
The voice of freedom. CRN America. These days, when you want an answer about just about anything, you ask Alexa. You ask her about the weather. You ask her who won your favorite sporting event. You ask her to find a fact that you can't find anywhere. Well, we did that too. We asked her how many people have downloaded itsanotherday.com. And this is what she said.
From acceleration.com. It has been downloaded as much as 260,433,467 times.
I know. Seems like a lot. Seems like a lot to us, too. But it's Alexa. Thanks for making us a part of your day. And tell your friends about itsanotherday.com. We could use an extra listener. I mean, what do you do when you only have 260 million?